Hey, it's Dave Brown here, host of Now with Dave Brown on AMI. Check out this latest highlight from the show.
So we're doing things a bit differently today. Instead of an accessibility story roundup, we decided to bring on one of our producers, Paul Daniel, who brought a story forward that we started having a deep conversation about off air, and we kind of figured, why don't we just do this on air so everyone else can hear it and get engaged. So I want to bring in Paul Daniel, who brought a story about all-terrain wheelchairs now being available in U.S. national parks, which is part of our poll question today. Paul, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm fine, Alex. How you doing?
Oh, I am doing just peachy. I'm jumbling up a few words this morning, but other than that, I'm doing fine. So let's talk about this story. What was it about it that caught your eye and caught your attention?
Well, sometimes when I hear talk about inclusion and accessibility, it's always couched in language that pretends it's some type of place in the future, when in fact, the technology is already to make it happen is already available. And this story example shows accessibility and inclusion isn't some far off nirvana. It's here and it's very doable. And sometimes it's not that far in the future. It's here, and I think that sometimes it's just the will that's necessary. And this also makes a lot of sense. It's simple to do, and the benefits of when you do it are immense.
Absolutely. Now, can you talk a bit about these all-terrain wheelchairs? Like, what do they look like? How do they operate?
Sure. Okay, well, the Action Track chair, which is being used in the Georgia, some of the Georgia program, in some of the national parks in Georgia, they're equipped with tank-like tracks capable of traversing rocks, roots, streams, and sand. So they can clear fallen trees, they can plow through tall grass, and they can tackle uphill climbs. They can go over a tree trunk, they can go through snow, they can manage through swamps and wetland, whereas someone using a wheelchair, just a sort of your basic standard wheelchair, might get stuck in a matter of minutes. And the user can use a switch or a toggle to navigate the device, much like a power chair.
Right, and so
these chairs. So one thing I want to add about the cost of these chairs is $12,500.
Wow.
That may vary, but these particular chairs are $12,500 in Georgia.
Yeah. Now, so are all national parks in the U.S. making these wheelchairs available?
This is a gradual process in the United States that began in 2017 when the Colorado Parks and Wildlife launched its own accessibility program, providing free adaptive equipment, although the guests do pay a small entrance fee to the park of $10. Since then, Michigan, South Dakota, and now Georgia have introduced similar programs. 3 years ago, the Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore, had to check the name of that. The Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore in Michigan became the first national park to offer a track chair. And that program is slowly expanding. Minnesota just wrapped up a pilot project of a similar nature and is assessing it whether to go forward. And so far, the results have been fairly positive from what I've read. So it's a patchwork effort. It's not blanket, but there are more states in America are beginning to go that way.
Yeah, and it seems like whenever I explore something when it has to do with accessibility and new programs, oftentimes it's the U.S. tends to lead the way on issues like this, where they will put more effort, more energy. The ADA's act in the U.S. seems to be a lot stronger and a lot more forceful in creating change. So how does this program compare to what our accessibility is like in Canada with our national parks?
Well, much like our American friends, accessibility and inclusion is still an ongoing and inconsistent process when it comes to enjoying our 37 national parks and 10 national park reserves. Under the Accessible Canada Act, our national parks must be made barrier-free by 2040. So that there is still some time. The good thing is there's an ongoing project called Accessible Parks Canada by the Kite Research Institute, which is the group's research arm of the Toronto Rehab Institute. And Kite is researching ways to make the country's national parks more accessible. And they've identified some of the devices that already exist that can be used by people with disabilities to enjoy the natural surroundings in those areas. Again, it's a patchwork effort. Not all parks have gone this way, but again, it's a slow effort to go that way. If I can give you some examples of what they're looking at, a wearable mobility for the blind and partially sighted, like the immersive buzz clip, the Addy Roommate, which provides audio descriptions of surroundings, and the Atlantic chair, a fully accessible water chair, which is we did a story about that a few months ago. In some parks, some beaches in Ontario are doing that now, and something very basic: a mobile washroom with lift and adult-sized change table. That sounds like a wonderful idea. It just sounds basic, right? But the good thing is it's here. The technology is available. It's not in the experimental stage.
Yeah, for me, I always find it very fascinating in Canada that it's almost left up to organizations, to different accessibility charities and
Yeah.
groups to really kind of push forward this change, to kind of prove that this is a need and that it's doable to make these changes. Whereas, in the States, it's done through the
Yeah.
national park system. Here, as you mentioned, it's a research project through an organization in Toronto. It's like this should be something that is done through the provincial government, done through the federal government, but it's left up to organizations who really have to kind of lift up these issues and vocalize and showcase why there
Yeah.
is a need for accessibility in our park system.
It can be very frustrating sometimes. There are some politicians who've been very active in speaking up on this issue, on the idea of accessibility and making parks barrier free. But again, it's a slow slog, as it were. And like I said, change and progress never move fast enough for most of us. But the one good takeaway is, as I said before, is that the technology, it does exist. It's commercially available. And I think what's needed is the effort to ensure that these devices are made available in the national parks. At least get it done by 2040.
Yeah, well, and that's the positive, that there is this end
Yeah.
goal date that we have to meet. So, in terms of the accessibility accommodations, like what do you think of these both in Canada and in the U.S.?
I think if you ask any person with disability like myself or even yourself there, Alex, it's long overdue. And we're behind schedule. We should have been here at these places long ago, but we're getting there. Progress and change, like I said, are never fast enough. But it's moving in the right direction. It's going in the right direction, and pretty soon, as time goes on, that people with disabilities can enjoy the natural surroundings. That's the good thing about it. We're far closer to it now than we've ever been before.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and just based on the different national parks I've had a chance to go and visit through my time, even just working with AMI, it's like the more we can share that experience with other members of the disability community, I mean, the better it will be, because there's just something beautiful being able to just go and see the natural beauty that our country holds. So, Paul, thank you so much for bringing this story forward and having this conversation. I think it's a meaningful one. It's one that probably doesn't get enough attention, but it's sorely overdue.
Hey, it's been a pleasure, Alex. Always good talking to you.
Do you want to dive into more conversations like this? Watch Now with Dave Brown weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on AMI-TV or download the podcasts wherever you listen. Do you want to dive into more conversations like this? Watch Now with Dave Brown weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on AMI-TV or download the podcasts wherever you listen.